The court said, and the defense may call its next witness.
Ms. Strofa said, Your Honor, may I step out for a minute?
The court said yes. Ma'am, if you would just restate your name to remind the jurors of your identity.
The witness said, Okay. All right. My name is Leanne Lee.
The court said, okay. Go ahead. You don't need to spell it at this point. So we're going to continue with her testimony. Remember that you're still under oath.
Leanne Lee, called as a witness by the defendant, having been previously duly sworn, testified as follows. Direct examination. Continued. By Ms. Schrofa.
Ms. Lee, I believe we left off yesterday when you were telling us about the followers you had on your YouTube account. Do you recall that?
I think the last question you were asking me was my follower on Wikimedia.
And go ahead. And if you could answer that.
Yeah. That one I don't remember.
Do you remember on what app you had followers?
I have YouTube channels.
How many YouTube channels did you have? Thank you.
Okay. So I personally have one, and another one upload all the pictures on the VOG, the English channels.
And at the time that you were uploading videos, how many followers did you have on the YouTube account?
Okay. So on my personal ones, I think roughly around 1,600. And then the one was on the VOG, the English channel, because I put most videos on there. So I'm thinking is more than 6,000, I think. More than.
Now, Ms. Lee, going back to when Mr. Gua contacted you, did you respond to the direct message you received from him?
Yes.
And was it a text message that you received or a voice note?
Voice note.
And did you have further conversations or voice? Did you ever have? I'll rephrase that question. Did you respond via voice note or by text?
To be honest, I don't remember.
And what was the gist of the exchange between you and Mr. Gua?
Ms. Murray said, Objection. Hearsay, Your Honor.
The court said, one moment please.
Pause.
The court said, sustained.
Ms. Lee, as a result of that exchange, did you take any steps?
What do you mean by that?
Did you do anything after you got a reach out from Mr. Gua?
He shared.
The court said, okay. Let me just explain that you're not allowed to repeat something that someone has said to you.
The witness said, Oh, I'm really sorry.
The court said, that's okay. Go ahead.
Do you mind rephrase the question again? Sorry.
What did Mr. Miles Gua do next?
Ms. Murray said, Objection. How would she know?
The court said, so, for example, if you had a conversation with somebody, you can say, I had the conversation. But you cannot say what the other person said. You cannot repeat the discussion.
The witness said, I understood.
The court said, and with respect to the question about what Mr. Gua did, if you know what he did, you can say so. If you have personal knowledge.
The witness said, Okay.
The court said, okay. Very good.
The witness said, Thank you for the explanation.
He shared his WhatsApp with me.
And after he shared his WhatsApp with you, did he invite you into any groups?
Yes.
And what groups were they?
Take down the CCP group, I think.
And on what application was Take Down the CCP group?
WhatsApp.
Is WhatsApp an app available on your iPhone?
Yes.
And before you started speaking with Mr. Gua, did you already have that app on your iPhone?
Yes.
Were there other people in the Take Down the CCP group?
Yes.
How many?
At that time was roughly around like 10 or 15 people.
Could you tell the names of each one of the 10 or 15 people?
I think Lude was there.
I'm sorry, I wasn't asking you the names. You could tell who the 10 or 15 people were, correct?
Sorry?
Let me try it again. You were in a WhatsApp group, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And could everybody in the group respond?
Yes.
Could everybody in the group speak, so to speak?
Yes.
And could you see who was talking at any given time?
Yes.
Do you recall, sitting here today, if everybody participated in this group?
The court said, what do you mean by everybody?
The members, the 10 people or 12 people who were in the group, did everybody speak?
Yes.
Did the size of this group increase?
Yes.
And to what number did it increase to?
Over 100.
And what were the topics that were discussed in this chat group?
People will exchange information about CCP, what they have done, and then the news.
Would you slow down, please?
Okay. I'm sorry. The news that were taboos in China. And some people will share the summary of Mr. Miles' was live broadcast.
What were topics that were considered taboo in China?
Ms. Murray said, "Objection, Your Honor. It is getting to hearsay at this point."
Ms. Schrofa said, "They are not being offered for the truth."
The court said, "You may answer that question."
Okay. So, for example, on June 4th, on the Tiananmen massacre, organ harvesting.
What did you say?
The court said, "Organ harvesting."
Okay. And were these topics discussed in the group chat?
Yes.
And at that time, Ms. Lee, were you working? Did you have a job?
Yes.
And what was your job at that time?
Realtor.
And for whom were you a realtor?
I was working for McDonald Realty.
And where was McDonald Realty located?
Zurich.
Where?
Zurich.
And where were you based when you worked for them?
Greater Vancouver, everywhere.
And did McDonald Realty have an office in Vancouver?
Yes.
For how long did you work for them?
Probably one year or so.
And at the time that you were working for them, did you also do anti-CCP work?
Yes.
What work did you do?
I translate Mr. Miles' live broadcast. And then, as I said, the most summarize, not summarize. That's wrong word. I should say, I translate the most important parts of his live broadcast with English subtitles.
Other than that, did you do any other work?
No.
Ms. Lee, did there come a time when you became the coordinator for the founding of the new federal state of China?
Yes.
And could you tell us what is the new federal state of China?
New federal state of China is based on my understanding. New federal state of China is organization with government that's going to replace the CCP. And where many people are waiting for this day to come because we promote the rule of law, democracy, right to vote, freedom of religion.
Ms. Lee, could you tell the jury what you did as a coordinator for the NFSC?
So at that time, we have different groups. We have translation groups, we have video groups, new federal state flag groups, and also manufacturing new federal state China flag group. So I was coordinating between all of these groups and making sure that we have a successful launch.
What launch are you referring to?
I'm referring to the establishment of new federal state of China.
And when was it supposed to launch?
On June 4th,
Of what year?
2020.
Did it launch on June 4th of 2020?
Yes.
And where was the announcement made from, do you know?
New York.
And who made the announcement?
It was Mr. Miles and Steve Bannon.
And who else?
And Hao Haidong and Ye Zhaoying.
And who was the last person?
Ye Zhaoying.
And who's that?
Hao Haidong, he is a very famous soccer player in China. And Ye Zhaoying. She is the badminton world champion. She has won many awards in Olympics, gold medals.
Ms. Lee, as a result of this volunteer work, were you offered a job?
Yes.
And what job were you offered?
Executive directors in GFashion LA.
And what is GFashion LA?
GFashion LA is a global luxurious brand. We sell in clothings.
And were you given a geographical place where you would be working from? Ms. Schrofa said, "You know, that was an awkward question. I withdraw it, Your Honor. Where were you going to be based?"
Okay. So I will be based in LA.
And did you, in fact, move from Vancouver to LA?
Yes.
And where, you know what? Let me backtrack. Who told you about this job opportunity?
Mr. Miles.
And as a result of that, were you interviewed for the job?
Yes.
And did you eventually move to LA?
Yes.
Where did you live?
In LA?
Yes, where in LA?
Melrose.
At that time, did you have an office for GFashion LA?
No.
And at that time, how old were you, Ms. Lee?
30 or 31.
Ms. Lee, did you view your work with GFashion as supporting anti-CCP or the whistleblower movement?
Yes.
Did GFashion have a physical office space in LA?
Ms. Murray said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Where was GFashion working out of when you first got to LA?
At that time, we don't have an office, so we worked from my residential place in LA.
And where was your residential place?
Ms. Murray said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Where in Los Angeles was your residential place?
Ms. Murray said, same objection.
The court said, are you asking for an address, a specific address, or a neighborhood?
Ms. Shrofa said, I apologize, Your Honor. I'll move on. Who paid the rent for your residence?
GFashion.
And were there other employees who worked out of GFashion LA?
Yes.
Who?
At that time we were 3 people, so Camel, Hao Tian.
Ms. Lee, let's try again. There were 3 people, correct?
Correct.
Who's the first?
Camel.
How do you spell his name?
Kamel.
And do you know his last name?
Dubek, but I don't know how to spell it.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, may I spell it for the record?
The court said, go ahead.
Ms. Shrofa said, DUBCH.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, for the record, it's DBCHE.
Ms. Shrofa said, We disagree, Your Honor, but we can move on.
By Ms. Shrofa.
What was his job title, Ms. Lee?
He was CEO of GFashion.
And then the second person you said was Tian Hao. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes.
What was her position?
Executive assistant.
Ms. Lee, were you responsible for hiring people to work at GFashion LA?
Together with Camel, yes.
And did you and Camel together hire anyone to work at GFashion LA?
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us, please, who you hired jointly.
Oh, we hired designers, graphic designers, pattern maker, tack pack.
The court said, what does that mean?
The witness said, like when designer, they finish the drawing, right? And then they need to transfer to a technical drawing. So the factories, they are able to understood that, so they can make it to come true, make that drawing come into a real piece. So that's called tack pack.
And I hired a legal counsel, and HR manager. And a merchandiser. Fabric manager.
Ms. Lee, who determined the salary for each one of these individuals?
The court said, you may answer.
Camel and I.
Did there come a time when GFashion LA was shut down?
Yes.
When was that?
2021 May, in May.
And Ms. Lee, do you know why GFashion LA was shut down?
I don't know.
And once it was shut down, what did you do?
I moved back to Vancouver.
Did you continue volunteering?
Yes.
Upon your return to Vancouver, did you look for a paying job?
Not at that time, because I want to spend some quality time with my mom.
What did you do as a volunteer during that time period after you returned to Vancouver?
I continued to do the videos, the short clip videos. And doing some translation job and helping Mr. Miles look for the properties for the new federal state of China.
What type of properties were you looking for?
We're looking for a property that contains larger land, and especially the zoning was very important.
The court said, zoning?
The witness said, the zoning, yes, the zoning. So allowed us to build multiple properties on the land.
Go ahead.
And the same time we were looking for somewhere that's secure. And secure for us to do live broadcast. Secure place for us to hold guests, secure place for all the supporters to come and meet.
Could you tell the jury how you searched for a base for the new federal state of China?
Ms. Murray said, mischaracterizes.
The court said, sustained. This is assuming facts that are not in evidence.
Ms. Lee, were you looking for a space for a base for the new federal state of China?
Ms. Murray said, I'm going to object to testifying.
The court said, I'm going to permit the question.
Yes.
Could you tell the jury how you undertook that search?
I just Google, and then I have there's one website I really like, it's called Zillow, I think. And then I use that to search.
And after you would search, What would you then prepare?
And then I will prepare a deck.
Could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is a deck?
I'm sorry. The deck, I use deck because we're using fashion, so it's pretty much.
Ms. Lee?
Sorry, I'll slow down. It's like a PowerPoint presentation.
And would you prepare PowerPoints for each property you found?
Yes.
And what would the PowerPoint include?
How many rooms, where it is located. Sometimes I will include the property tax and a lot of the pictures. Location were important. Did I say weather? Weather conditions? Yeah.
Ms. Lee, when did you first start working on identifying properties that would serve as a base for the new federal state of China?
I think it was starting 2020.
And what were some of the places that you looked for these properties? Which states or countries?
Mainly U.S. California, Texas, Colorado, Hawaii, Connecticut. And I have also searched some islands around the U.S.
Did you physically travel to any of these places?
No.
Why not?
There are two reasons, okay. So the first reasons, some of the price was too high.
No, did you? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Maybe you miss. I'll let you continue. Sorry. Did you physically travel to look at these locations?
No.
Why not?
So there are two reasons. So one, the property was never chosen because there were two factors, right? One is too expensive. And the zoning is not right.
Ms. Lee, my question was, did you physically travel to look at these properties?
No.
Why?
Because.
What was going on in 2020?
Okay. Pandemic.
After you prepared these, did you prepare decks for every property you looked at?
Yes.
And did you share those decks with anyone?
I only shared with Mr. Miles.
And how did you share them with Mr. Miles?
On WhatsApp.
Ms. Lee, was any property purchased in 2020 that you are aware of?
Darlington.
And where's the Darlington property located?
New Jersey.
Where in New Jersey?
MOA.
Now, let me show you what is marked as GX134, please. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
What is it a photograph of?
Darlington.
Ms. Lee, did you do any research on the property that you see in Government Exhibit 134 that you've called Darlington?
Yes.
What research did you do? Actually, let me withdraw that and ask you this question first. Who instructed you to do research on this property?
Mr. Miles.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, may I just have 1 second?
The court said yes.
Ms. Shrofa said, You can take that down, please. I apologize, Your Honor. I just need 1 minute. Could we pull up DX 60760 and 60760T? Ms. Lee, while the document is being pulled up, do you recall around what month and what year you were asked to research that property?
2020.
And?
November, I think. Around November.
And did you, in fact, conduct the research you were asked to conduct?
Yes.
And did you, in conducting the research, use the Zillow link?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Let me show you what is marked as DX 60760 and 60760T. Do you recognize these documents? Ms. Shrofa said, If you could, is there a second page? It's not for the jury, just for the witness. Thank you. Do you recognize this document?
Yes. 60760T.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, the defense offers 60760 and...
Ms. Murray said, Objection. Hearsay.
The court said you'll have to step up.
At sidebar.
The court said, Why are you objecting?
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, this is a chat communication between the defendant and the witness. It's an out-of-court statement. It's being offered for its truth. It's including the address of the Mala mansion. Other context is redacted. My understanding it was in Mandarin. And there are also, a second basis for the objection is incompleteness. There are certain voice memos that are sent that are part of this conversation. They have not been produced and translated in their entirety for the government. So it's not clear to us what the full conversation would be.
Ms. Shrofa said, "So, Your Honor, these are not hearsay because it is not an out-of-court statement. It is clearly a direction and an instruction from Mr. Gua to the witness. It is also not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted as to whether or not any of the information borne out in these chats is, in fact, accurate or inaccurate or truthful. It is a recording and a present-sense impression of what the witness was doing at the time that she was doing it."
The court said, "So you're saying that these amount to commands from Mr. Gua?"
Ms. Shrofa said, "Well, it was a command. According to the government, Mr. Gua commands. And every witness that has appeared in this trial obeys."
The court said, "But I'm asking from your point of view."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Yes, Your Honor."
The court said, "So we have a problem if the full content of the conversation, a portion of which is audio messages, if they are not produced for the government, they can't review it."
Ms. Shrofa said, "The government has had these documents. We got these documents from the government's Rule 16 discovery. And as I understand it, on the uploaded exhibits, the translations were provided to the government. I do want to caveat this, Your Honor. As I told you yesterday, there had been a machine breakdown, which is why some of the documents were also sent to the government late. I know you told us to do better, but that was part of the delay in production."
The court said, "But this is not an explanation for missing transcripts and translations of audio conversations that are part of the chat."
Ms. Shrofa said, "We don't believe."
Ms. Murray said, "If I may, Your Honor. I have the document in question here for you to review. So this is 60760T, which Ms. Shroff referred to. You can see there are messages. It references 111 messages in this chart report. These are excerpted. They are redacted. I don't see any commands by Mr. Gua. I see an audio message referenced. The transcript and translation of which the government does not have. Then I see a response, 'Okay, my Mr. Gua.' Then I see a website with no instructions attached to it. Again, I see a PDF that I don't have. Then I see the witness sending an address, the witness asking Mr. Gua a question. And then his responses are audio messages, the transcripts and translations of which the government does not have."
The court said, "So there is an insufficient foundation. I will not permit it to be admitted. Please continue."
In open court.
Ms. Shrofa said, "Your Honor, may I just have a minute?"
The court said yes.
Ms. Shrofa said, "Your Honor, I'm sorry. May we reapproach?"
The court said, "One moment. Yes, you may step up."
At sidebar.
Ms. Shrofa said, "Your Honor, I don't think I'm wrong, but if I am, we were struggling. So, the document that is marked as T."
Ms. Murray said, "It's this one."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Right. It has the transcription of the voice notes. I don't know why it's not matching up to what we see."
Ms. Murray said, "This was the revised set that we received at 4 in the morning on Sunday, on Monday."
Ms. Shrofa said, "So each one is broken down for you here. If you look at 6076, that's the chart that we sent to you with each breakdown where we explained that we had given you the long transcription."
Ms. Murray said, "So those have different control numbers."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Right."
Ms. Murray said, "Exhibit numbers. Are you seeking to?"
Ms. Shrofa said, "If I could just explain what you have, that might help you."
Ms. Murray said, "Sure."
Ms. Shrofa said, "And that each was broken down just very arbitrarily to keep the documents manageable. They are marked in the email chart that we sent you. And if I could just have 1 minute, I could go grab the chart. So here's the chart. In the chart we gave you the DX number, then we gave you the category. Then I gave you the description, then the text. And these are my cheat notes about hearsay, so I didn't give you that. But we sent you 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I'm happy to."
Ms. Murray said, "I appreciate that. Your Honor, just to correct myself. I do see now that for this particular chat we have audio messages that were broken out with different numbers. I would note, however, that they do not fall under the command exception to hearsay. Here's an example. It says, Xiaomei, which I understand to be this witness's Chinese name. Although that hasn't been established, did a great job. It was amazing. It was done even better than GFashion in this regard. That is not a command. Thank you very much.
The court said, "These are all from Mr. Guo?"
Ms. Schrofa said, "Yes, Your Honor. Those are his voice notes that we downloaded, translated, and then provided. I just want to make sure we had provided them."
The court said, "Okay, so now she's going through and challenging your characterization of them. Go ahead."
Ms. Murray said, "This says, I want to find a place where the people of the new federal state of China can live together in case of a disaster. Such as a vaccine disaster. I have looked for many places to see how we can live together at the critical moment. Not a command. I don't have A in my binder. If I could ask for the defense to pull that up. While we're doing that. Your Honor. I would note for this witness there are a series of other chat conversations that I expect we will be raising the same objections. For all of those I will reconfirm at the break. But I am certain for all of those because I followed up with the defense. Those are situations where we do not have all of the audio messages in the chat and, therefore, we had completeness objections. We conveyed those to the defense a couple days ago after we received these chats. And we did not receive a response.
Ms. Schrofa said, "I believe she responded to you. I'm happy to confirm. The person who was working on this particular task confirmed that. Maybe there's a glitch, but I'm happy to look. But at least for these particular transcriptions you have them, right?"
Ms. Murray said, "These I do. For 60,760. If I could just impose on you to pull up a so that I can address that objection. Mr. Kilgard, this is 60760A.
Ms. Schrofa said, "You may scroll down."
Ms. Murray said, "This is the deck, Your Honor, from Mawa. That's not an instruction or a command."
Ms. Schrofa said, "The deck is a document that she prepared. There is no hearsay objection to a deck or a PowerPoint being prepared and sent to someone because we're not introducing any part of the deck for the truth of the matter asserted that her research was accurate. That she did it correctly, that Mawa, in fact, is called Darlington. We are certainly not suggesting that it is truthful. What we are showing is that she was given a task. She prepared a PowerPoint, and she sent the PowerPoint back to Miles Guo. The other objection that I had also raised, along with whether or not the original introduction which the government objected to was an order from Mr. Guo to her. It was a command for her to undertake the research. His follow-up is certainly not being offered for the truth. Whether or not she did a great job or whether or not she did well, it doesn't matter. We are not suggesting that his evaluation of her work product is being offered for the truth of the matter asserted."
The court said, "But evaluation is not command."
Ms. Murray said, "Correct, Your Honor. And just with respect to this in particular. The others aren't even close to a command, and I don't know why they would be relevant. This one obviously has relevance. This is 60760DT. This is clearly being offered for the truth. They are trying to introduce hearsay that Mr. Guo wants to find a place where the people of the new federal state of China can live. And they are linking that to Mawa."
The court said, "So expressing his desire does not amount to a command. So we are left with the deck. Do you object to the deck?"
Ms. Murray said, "I do not object to the deck."
The court said, "All right. Let's go back."
Continued on next page. In open court. By Ms. Schrofa.
Ms. Lee, just to reset, did you research the property called Darlington?
Yes.
And how did that research project start? Ms. Schrofa said, "You can take this document down, please. Thank you. Who prompted the research project?"
Mr. Miles sent me an address.
I'm sorry, can you?
Okay. So Mr. Miles, he sent me an address.
How did he send you an address?
He sent me the address on WhatsApp.
And did he type out an actual address or did he send you a link?
Actual address, type it out.
And as a result of receiving that actual address, what did you do next?
I use that address and start searching for this properties on the internet.
How did you search for this property on the internet?
I think I use the Zillow or Google or some other website.
And for how long did you research? How long did your research take? Actually, that's a better question. How long did your research take, do you recall?
Probably several hours.
And after you did the research, what did you do?
And put all the information into one deck.
And what did you name the deck, do you remember?
I always call it Darlington.
And Ms. Lee, I've referred to you as Leanne Lee, correct?
Yes.
Do you also have another name or a Mandarin version of your name?
I have a middle name.
Okay.
My middle name is Nan, N-A-N. So Leanne Nan Lee.
Were you referred to by any other name by Mr. Guo?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And could you tell us what other names he used when referring to you? Please slow down.
Okay. He refers me Xiaomei.
And could you spell that for the court reporter, Martha, please?
Xiaomei.
Okay. Now, let me show you what is marked as DX60760A. Do you recognize? Let's scroll down for you. Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, may we just… I'm sorry, could we… I seem to have the wrong version up. I apologize. Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. I think we've sorted out the numbering. If I could just have you relook at 60760A and just pick up where you were more than halfway through. Do you recognize this deck?
Yes.
And did you create this deck?
Yes.
And do you recall when you created it?
2021, probably November-ish.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, at this time the defense moves 60760A and 60760T into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, to be clear on the numbering, I believe it's 60760A and 60760AT. The government has no objection to those.
Ms. Shrofa said, the T is for the translation of the document.
The court said, they are admitted. Defendants Exhibit 60760A, 60760AT received in evidence.
Ms. Shrofa said, Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I publish 60760A to the jury?
The court said yes.
Ms. Shrofa said, Thank you.
By Ms. Shrofa.
Ms. Lee, how many slides were in this deck?
I don't remember. It's a lot.
Do you remember an approximate number?
No.
Okay. And what information did you include in this deck? Ms. Shrofa said, and if we could pull up 60760AT. Do you recall what kind of information you included on this deck?
Yes.
And what kind of information did you include?
General history about Darlington and the property tax and how many rooms and who are the designers.
And again, did you send this deck to Mr. Guo?
Yes.
And in what language was the deck when you sent it to Mr. Guo?
Chinese.
Now, did there come a time when Mr. Guo informed you of what it is he was looking for the new federal state of China?
Ms. Murray said, Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
The court said, sustained.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, I'm not asking the contents. I'm just asking if he informed her of something.
The court said, if he informed her of?
Ms. Shrofa said, what his plans were for the new federal state of China.
The court said, you may answer that, but you may not say what he stated.
The witness said, okay, I understand.
So, yes.
And after you sent him this deck, was there any follow-up from Mr. Guo to you?
Ms. Murray said, Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
The court said so you can say whether he followed up but not what he said.
The witness said, understood.
He followed up.
And as a result of that follow-up, what is it that you did?
I did more research on this property.
And what is this property that you're referring to?
Darlington.
Did you have an understanding of what Darlington was going to be used for?
A base for new federal state of China.
Did there come a time, Ms. Lee, when you were asked to contact Camel and have him assist you with projects?
Yeah.
And could you tell us what that project was?
He need to look for the furnitures for this property.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Lee. What languages do you speak?
I speak English and Mandarin, Chinese.
What languages does Camel speak?
English.
Does he speak any other language?
French.
And what languages did Mr. Gua speak?
Chinese.
Did you translate chats or instructions from Mr. Gua to Camel from English to Mandarin? I mean from Mandarin to English?
Yes.
And if Mr. Miles directed you to do something with the assistance of another, would you translate that instruction from him? Do you understand my question? It was a little awkward.
Yes. Can you rephrase that?
If Mr. Gua wanted to instruct somebody who did not speak Mandarin, did you assist in the interpretation of his Mandarin instruction into English?
Yes.
Ms. Lee, at the time that you were researching this property, did you have an understanding of whether or not your work product was to be publicly shared? Were you free to share that, the deck, with other people?
No.
At the time that you prepared the deck, were you aware if that property had, in fact, been bought already?
Yes.
Had it been bought already?
Yes.
And were you asked to do additional research on the same property?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, "What happened next?"
The witness said, "Can I answer?" Started looking for furnitures.
Let me show you what is marked as DX72661R. Ms. Schrofa said, and this is just for the witness and the court and the government. Do you recognize this document, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Do you need us to scroll down?
Yes.
Could you tell us what this document is?
Photos of Darlington.
And were these also made into a new deck? Did you make a new deck?
Yes, this one I made a new deck.
And when did you make this deck?
2022.
What did you include? Did you add to the previous deck, or did you make a brand new deck?
I made a brand new deck.
And what did you put in this deck?
All the old pictures, all the pictures I can find on the internet about Darlington.
And do you know how many slides constitute DX72661R?
I don't know. I think it's over 100 slides maybe.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, the defense moves DX72661R into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, "It is admitted."
Defendant's Exhibit 72661 are received in evidence.
Ms. Lee, did you include into this deck information that Mr. Gua had requested of you?
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, "Sustained."
Ms. Murray said, both to the leading and hearsay.
The court said, "Sustained."
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, I'm not asking for the contents of the information.
The court said, "Right. But once it's in evidence, the jury will be able to look at the content and then discern what the hearsay statements were."
Counsel conferred.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, just for the record, the exhibit does not have statements. I will move on.
By Ms. Schrofa.
What types of photographs did you include in this deck?
All the history I can find about Darlington.
All the what?
All the pictures, all the photos I can find about Darlington's on the internet. I have gathered them all together in this deck.
Let me show you what is marked as DX60734. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Schrofa said, and could we just scroll down very quickly for the witness? What is this document, Ms. Lee?
This was after the first deck, and this was the second one I made. But then it was added on the first deck. So more slides, more informations about Darlington. Especially about the designers. Who are the designers?
You mean the designers of the Darlington property?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Schrofa said, so, Your Honor, at this time the defense would move 60,734 into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, "It is admitted."
Defendant's Exhibit 60734 received in evidence.
To whom did you send this deck?
I sent to Mr. Miles.
Ms. Lee, How many decks did you make about the Darlington property, do you recall?
3.
And did you update the decks frequently?
Yes.
And did you do additional research to update the decks?
Yes.
And after the purchase of Mawa or Darlington? Ms. Shrofa said, "We can take that down from the jury, please." Thank you. Did you continue to research other properties? Did you continue to look for other properties as possible bases for the new federal state of China?
Yes.
And could you tell me where it is that you focused your search?
I think more California.
And do you, sitting here today, recall what property you looked at in California?
I remember one property, the name, I forgot the unit number. I think something Eagle something.
Let me show you what is marked as DX60730. Does that document refresh your recollection as to what property you looked for in California? Just if you could answer me yes or no.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize the document that is before you now?
Yes.
Would you take a look at it and tell us what that is?
This is like a piece of land located California.
Ms. Shrofa said, "Your Honor, the defense moves to introduce into evidence 60730.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 60730 received in evidence.
Ms. Lee, I will publish this to the jury in a minute. But in regards to 0 Eagle Canyon Creek, did you speak to anyone about the listing of the property?
I shared the deck with Mr. Miles.
Did you contact the listing agent on this property?
Yes.
And why did you contact the listing agent on this property?
I think regarding to the price and the location, the size of the land. It can be a good choice for base of a new federal state of China.
And Ms. Lee, sitting here today, do you know one way or another if this property was purchased?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Sitting here today, do you know one way or another if this property was either purchased or not purchased? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you also look for other properties in California as a possible base?
Yes.
Did you look at a property in Rancho Dos Vistas in California?
I don't recall the address. Maybe I need to see the picture, see if you have it.
I'll actually move forward so that, all right. Let me show you DX60729. Does that refresh your recollection as to the property in California?
Yes.
Ms. Shrofa said, the defense moves 60729 into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 60729 received in evidence.
Do you recall looking for property in Texas?
Yes.
And do you recall where in Texas that was?
I don't remember.
Ms. Shrofa said, could we show the witness DX60728? Do you recognize this document? Ms. Shrofa said, if we could just scroll down for her. Your Honor, the defense moves 60728 into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 60728 received in evidence.
And Ms. Lee, did you make a deck out of this property?
Yes.
And did you send that deck to Mr. Gua?
Yes.
Did he respond to the deck?
Yes.
Was this property purchased?
I don't know.
Do you recall what the price on this property was?
I don't recall.
The court said, all righty. It's now 11:29, so we will take our half of an hour break. Remember, do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't permit anyone to discuss the case in your presence. Don't read, watch, or listen to anything from any source that touches upon the subject matter of this case.
Jury not present.
The court said, ma'am, you may step out of the courtroom.
Witness not present.
The court said, you may be seated. Is there anything before we resume at noon?
Ms. Murray said, nothing from the government. Thank you.
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, I'm going to try and see if the government. Since they have no objections to some of these decks, we can just stipulate to them coming in.
Ms. Murray said, absolutely.
Ms. Shrofa said, I think that will move the witness along.
The court said yes.
Ms. Shrofa said, I don't need to publish all the decks now. If Mr. Kamraja chooses to use them in summation, that's fine.
The court said, I wish you would have thought of that beforehand.
Ms. Shrofa said, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'll try and move it along.
The court said, all righty. We'll resume at noon.
Ms. Murray said, thank you, Your Honor.
Luncheon recess. Continued on next page. Jury not present.
The court said, please get the jury.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, I apologize, before the jury comes in just briefly.
The court said, okay. One moment, please.
Mr. Skirik said, sorry, Your Honor. We had offered after this morning's 9 o'clock to come back to address the issue that we had broached with the court about Mr. Yi's testimony and reasonable inferences. Happy to do that now. Happy to do it later. I just had told the court that I would come back, so I wanted to make sure I did that.
The court said, thank you for letting me know. I think I'd like to continue with the testimony.
Mr. Skirik said, fair enough, Your Honor. Thank you.
The court said, please have the jurors brought in.
The law clerk said, jury entering.
Jury present.
The court said, please be seated and please continue. Please remember that you're still under oath.
By Ms. Shrofa.
Ms. Lee, let me show what you is marked as Defense Exhibit 60727, which we move to admit into evidence with no objection from the government.
The court said, so this has already been admitted?
Ms. Shrofa said, Your Honor, we move for its formal admission. I believe the government has no objection.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, I want to go on the record as having admitted it.
Defendant's Exhibit 60727 received in evidence. By Ms. Shrofa.
Ms. Lee, do you recall looking at properties in Hawaii?
Yes.
Do you know what year that was in?
Maybe 2021 or 2022. I'm not sure.
And did you prepare a slide deck for this property?
Yes.
Did you speak to anyone about this property?
No.
Did you take into consideration any of the factors that you mentioned before while determining the appropriateness of this property?
Ms. Murray said, objection, form.
The court said, sustained.
Was this property ever purchased by anyone?
I don't know.
We can take that down. Do you know if as part of your coordination whether you looked at properties for G clubs?
Yes.
And where did you look for properties for G clubs?
The same areas.
Did you look for properties for G clubs outside of the United States?
No.
And where in the United States did you look for properties for G clubs?
Same areas, like California, Colorado, Texas, Hawaii.
Ms. Lee, I'm going to go back to speaking about Darlington. After Darlington was purchased, did you do any projects for that property?
Yes.
Were you part of any project groups that were created on WhatsApp?
I think it was called live streaming group or something.
And what was the live streaming group?
We're trying to build a live broadcast room in Darlington.
And what was your role as part of that group?
To share my findings, my research with some of other members in the group.
Sitting here today, do you recall who else was part of that group?
Gandalf was in there, Jason, Brian.
Who is Brian?
Brian, he was the CTO of Getter.
And what is Getter?
Getter's social media platform.
And how did you communicate with Yvette in this group?
Yeah, she is.
And how did each member communicate with each other?
We would just chat on the group chat.
And was the name of the group chat? What was the name of that group chat? Do you remember?
Ms. Murray said, asked and answered, Your Honor.
The court said, sustained.
Was it more than one group chat that you were a part of?
Yes.
What was the second group chat that you were part of?
I'm not sure. Maybe the name's call recording group or something, recording room group.
Do you recall if Darlington was used to set up streaming broadcast for the NFSC?
Yes.
Can you tell us where the broadcast was streamed from?
In the Darlington, one of the room in Darlington, we're going to turn it into a live broadcast room.
And how are you going to turn it into a live broadcast room?
I have searched for a vendor and this company, they can help us to build it.
Do you remember the name of the vendor?
I don't recall.
Do you remember what the vendor did?
Yeah, they send their plan and quotation with me.
Did the vendors visit MOA?
Yes.
Were you there when they visited MOA?
No.
How did you learn that they had in fact visited MOA?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, well, you can say the manner in which you learned, but you cannot state something that was said to you.
The witness said, understood.
I coordinate with Gladys.
And was part of the coordination include letting you know that they had in fact visited?
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, okay, this is pure rank hearsay. Don't do that.
Ms. Lee, did you coordinate visits to MOA?
Yes.
Did you coordinate visits to MOA by vendors?
Yes.
Was one of the vendors the vendor who was going to set up the live streaming group?
Can you repeat that question again?
Was one of the vendors you coordinated with the person who was going to help build the live streaming room?
Yes.
Over what app did you do the coordination?
WhatsApp.
Who is Gandalf?
Gandalf is one of the supporters, and he helped live broadcast in 3C Office.
Do you know if Gandalf had any training in live streaming?
He was doing live broadcast in 3C Office already at this time.
Do you know somebody named Sunglasses?
Yes.
Who was that?
His name, I think English name called Jason.
And was he part of the group?
Yes.
And what was his role?
He also helped to coordinate the supporters and the vendors to visit MOA.
Now, Ms. Lee, did the vendor send you quotations for this project?
Yes.
And did you evaluate those price quotations?
What do you mean by evaluate?
Do you recall sitting here today how many cameras they sent you and a price range for?
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor, to the testifying.
What equipment did the vendors discuss with you?
Camera, lights, tons of cables.
And did you get a price for each one including camera, light, and what was the last one?
A lot of cables, like wires, cables.
Did you get a price quote from the vendor?
Yes.
And did you evaluate that price quote?
I share the quotation in the group so, for example, Brian.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
Gandalf can help me.
Ms. Schrofa said, she's not saying what they said.
The court said, remember not to say what was said.
The witness said, okay.
Did other people chime in and give their views on the price?
Yes.
And ultimately, was there a group decision made as to whether or not the vendor should be hired?
I think later on this project did not proceed because the pricing, Gandalf and Brian think it was too high.
The court said, all righty. So you're not to say what was said to you or what you think somebody was thinking.
The witness said, thinking. Okay. Sorry about that.
The court said, go ahead.
Ms. Lee, did you also get price quote on audio equipment for MOA?
Yes.
From whom did you get price quotes?
I think from the same vendor.
Do you recall what audio equipment was going to be purchased?
I don't recall.
Who's Brian?
Brian, he is the CTO for Getter.
And what was Brian's area of expertise?
IT.
What is IT?
Information technology.
What was Brian's position at Getter?
He was CTO.
At the time that you were undertaking these projects, did you sign an NDA?
Yes.
Did everyone else in the group that you mentioned sign an NDA?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, go ahead.
Do you know, Ms. Lee, if everyone was required to sign an NDA prior to joining that group?
Yes.
Were they required to sign an NDA before joining that group?
I think later there were requests to sign NDA.
Do you know how much later?
Maybe one day.
Ms. Lee, did there come a time when you received a call from the Rule of Law Foundation without telling us the content of the call?
Yes.
And as a result of that call, what did you do?
I continued to translate the documents from English to Chinese and Chinese to English and video making with the English subtitles or Chinese subtitles.
And in what year was this?
2021.
Ms. Lee, were you ever offered a job or a sponsorship through the Rule of Law Foundation?
Yes.
For what?
For the work I was doing.
And were you going to be paid for that work?
Yes.
And who was going to pay you?
Rule of law.
And how much were you going to be paid per month?
5,000 USD.
Do you know somebody named Mulan?
Yes.
Was she opposed to you being paid by the Rule of Law Foundation?
I don't know.
For how long did you work for the Rule of Law Foundation, Ms. Lee?
Less than a year.
And after that, what did you do next?
I visit London.
Why did you visit London? Actually, let me rephrase that. Who sent you for a visit to London?
Mr. Miles.
Where were you told to visit?
Himalaya Exchange.
What were you supposed to do at the Himalaya Exchange?
To review their financial documents or statements.
Who were you given as a contact person to review the financial statements for the Himalaya Exchange?
William J.E.
And what exactly were you supposed to review?
Bank statements, cash flow, balance sheet, income statement, work chart.
Do you sitting here today without telling us did you have an understanding as to why you were being asked to look at Mr. J's accounting books?
Mr. Miles.
No.
The court said. That's where you should not repeat what somebody said or thinks.
The witness said, sorry.
Do you have an understanding as to why you were sent to look at the books?
Yes.
And what was your understanding based on? Don't tell me the content. It's all right. I'll ask another question. Did you have any expertise, Ms. Lee, in evaluating financial records?
No.
By this time, for how long had you worked for GFashion?
A year.
And did you have any other experience reading or auditing books?
Well, I have a business degree, so I have learned all of these things at the university.
Did you in fact go to the Himalaya Exchange offices in London?
Yes.
Did you meet with anyone there?
William J.E.
Were you given access to any documents pertaining to the Himalaya Exchange?
No.
When you were denied access to the documents for the Himalaya Exchange, what did you do next?
I went to Milan.
I meant immediately after you were denied access. What did you do that day?
I went back to the hotel.
And after you went back to the hotel, what did you do? Did you inform anyone that you were not given access?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, you know what hearsay is. I know that you do, and so I don't want you to elicit it.
While you in London, were you ever able to review any of the financial records for the Himalaya Exchange?
No.
Were you part of a single chat group that was formed while you were in London?
Yes.
Who was in that chat group?
William J.E., Mr. Miles, Kathy, and myself.
Who is Kathy?
Kathy is a girl who's working in Himalaya Exchange.
After that chat group, did you? Do not disclose the contents. Was that chat group active while you were there in London?
Yes.
Did you do anything the next day while you were still in London?
I visit there again.
Where is there?
Sorry, I visit Himalaya Exchange again.
And was this on the following day or the same day?
Following day.
And were you given access to any financial records on the following day?
No.
What did you do after that?
I went back to the hotel.
After that, did you leave London, Ms. Lee, or did you take any other steps while you were in London?
I look for audit company.
And what kind of audit company did you look for?
They are specialized in cryptocurrency.
And did you in fact, who did you contact to help you find an audit committee?
Myself.
How did you go about trying to find an audit company?
I search on the internet.
Did you do anything else other than search on the internet?
After the search, then I evaluate a few candidate, and then I narrow down one. So I paid a visit there with Kathy together.
And did you in fact locate someone that you hired?
I'm sorry.
Did you in fact hire anyone? Did you in fact hire an auditing company?
No.
Ms. Lee, after London, where did you go next?
I went to Milan.
And why did you go to Milan?
I went to audit GFashion.
And where did you go to audit GFashion?
Milan.
And to whose offices did you go?
GFashion office.
I apologize. I need to go back to the meeting at the Himalaya Exchange. Ms. Lee, were you the person that was originally supposed to take that trip to London?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, sustained.
Were you asked to go to London at the last minute?
Yes.
By whom? I'll rephrase that. Were you substituting for someone else?
Ms. Murray said, objection to the testifying, Your Honor.
The court said, sustained.
Did you have an understanding of why it was such a last-minute thing?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, sustained, sustained, sustained.
Moving forward back to GFashion. What did you do when you got to Milan?
I meet the team.
The team for whom?
I meet the GFashion team in Milan office.
Who did you meet with specifically?
Michela, Chiara, Marina, Federica, Dina, and 2 other girls in the office. Maybe one girl is called Rika.
How about somebody named Ms. Volpe, Andrea Volpe?
He was not there at that time.
Were you given access to the books for GFashion?
Not in the beginning.
And did there come a time when you were given access?
Yes.
How many days later was that?
Maybe after a month or so.
And did you in fact audit the backs for GFashion?
Yes.
And what did you do as part of the audit?
So I reviewed all the financials. I check all the vendor list. And afterwards I have to visit all the factories.
How many factories? What were the factories for?
Those factories are making clothings.
Making what?
Clothing, garments.
And who were they making clothings for?
GFashion.
Did you visit each one of these factories?
Yes.
How many factories did you in fact visit?
Maybe 10.
And were any of these factories of concern to you?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
How many?
How many?
How many factories were you satisfied with? Let me start with that.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor.
The court said, how did you feel about the factories?
All of it or just the one?
The court said you can talk about all of them, some of them, just let us know what you thought.
So after visit all the factories, and I'm very satisfied with most of them. Only one factories I was unsatisfied.
Which was the factory that you were not satisfied with?
Cataldi.
And can you spell that for us, please?
CALTADI.
Is it possible that you mean CTLDI?
The court said, don't ask her to guess.
Ms. Schrofa said, I'm trying to do this for the record, Your Honor, but I'm happy to refrain. What did you do about the problem that you perceive with this factory?
I stopped all the payments.
And what was the problem with this factory for you?
It's not okay. Cataldi is not factory. In fact, it is agent. They outsource the work.
And was that not to your satisfaction?
Yes.
And who decided to terminate the contract with Cataldi?
I did.
Did you visit a factory called ASAP Factory?
Yes.
Did you visit the Morelli factory?
Yes.
Did you terminate their contracts?
No.
How many people were working at GFashion Milan at that time?
7 people, around 7.
Did you evaluate whether there was a need for GFashion to have 7 employees?
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, I'm also going to object on relevance grounds. At this point I'm not sure how these questions are relevant.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, I'm happy to have a sidebar and explain to the government.
The court said, I'll permit the questions. I just don't want you to lead.
Ms. Schrofa said, could the court reporter read back the question?
The record was read.
Did you take any steps after your evaluation?
Yes.
What steps did you take?
I terminate the 2 front desk girls.
Could you explain to the jury what you mean by that?
There were 2 Italian girls that were working. I terminate them. Their job title was front desk assistant, and another girl was some sort of assistant as well. And at that time at the office, we don't even have a front desk, so that's why.
For how long did you stay in Milan?
Until now.
After your time, from the time that you were there in 2021 until now, you've continuously resided in Milan?
Yes.
Are you still employed by GFashion?
Yes.
What do you do now?
I run the operations of GFashion.
Ms. Schrofa said, may I show the witness and the court and the government DX60738X? We can pause it there. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
We're doing the video shoot for the launch.
In what year was this made?
2022.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, the defense moves to admit 60738X into evidence.
Ms. Murray said, I don't see the relevance, but no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 60738X received in evidence.
Ms. Schrofa said, May we play it for the jury?
The court said, go ahead.
Media played.
Ms. Schrofa said, It's DX60738X. Ms. Lee, did you organize this shoot?
Yes.
Did you plan the shoot yourself or with others?
With GFashion team together.
And what did the GFashion team consist of?
We do design and we have e-commerce manager, so manage the entire website. And the logistic also has a site in Italy, so shipping.
Let me show you what is marked as DX60764. Do you recognize that? I think I got the wrong number. Sorry. It's being pulled up, Your Honor. Do you recognize this photograph, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
What is it?
John Legend, he's wearing like GFashion Buddha silk jacket on the voice.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, defense would like to enter into evidence DX60764.
Ms. Murray said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Defendant's Exhibit 60764 received in evidence. By Ms. Schrofa.
Could you tell us what collection he's wearing?
Silk Buddha collection.
How much does that cost?
I don't recall.
We can take that down, please. Ms. Lee, are you familiar with something called G Music?
Yes.
What is it?
We make music that we get anti-CCP music.
And do you have any role in making anti-CCP music?
Yes.
What was your role?
As a coordinator.
What did you coordinate?
I coordinate between Mr. Miles and Hollywood production team. And also I coordinate with Chinese songwriting team.
And who is the Chinese songwriting team?
Tang Ping and William.
Could you spell the name for the court reporter?
Okay. Tang, T-A-N-G, Ping, P-I-N-G.
And what is her claim to fame?
She's a very famous singer in China.
And what was the other person that you coordinate with, William something?
William, yes.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
Ms. Schrofa said, she testified to the name. I'm just reminding her to move it along.
The court said, so moving it along, that is a good thing.
So you mentioned William in your answer before, correct?
Yes.
And what is William's full name?
William Wong.
And who is he?
He writes lyrics.
And what nationality is he? Lyrics in what language?
In Chinese.
Did they help with the writing of music for G Music?
Yes.
What song did they help write?
My Being John, Sick, the name called The Hero, in English called The Hero.
Did you play a role in the production of the song The Hero?
Yes.
And what is the song The Hero about?
It's about Mongolian people.
What about the Mongolian people?
The CCP tried to eradicate the Mongolian culture and the languages, and those Mongolian people. They are able to stand up and fight and to do protest, so this song honor them.
And who wrote the song?
Tang Ping.
What was the Chinese name of the song, do you know?
The interpreter said, from interpreter. The witness actually said it in Chinese. The translation should be horseback hero.
What is the horseback hero?
Horseback means, okay. It represents the Mongolian people because Mongolian people is famous for their writing skills.
Their writing skills?
Writing.
The court said, you mean horseback riding, right?
The witness said, yes, exactly.
Ms. Lee, how many bank accounts have you opened all told?
The court said, do you mean in her life or in connection with a particular business?
In your life?
Around 28.
And for what entities did you open these accounts?
GFashion, G Club 1 and G Club 2 and G Club 3.
Let's look at Government Exhibit JPM 49. Have you seen this document before?
No.
Do you have knowledge of these transfers that are reflected on this document?
Please give me a minute to look at it. Can I double refer? This is a transfer, right?
I'm not going to be able to answer questions for you. Do you recognize that document?
No.
Can you tell the jury if you can read the name on the account?
G Club 2.
And do you see the first column there? Do you see row 4 as you scroll down? You see a date paid?
Yes.
And what is the date there?
January 5th, 2021.
I'm talking about the row above.
It doesn't have a number there.
Before January 5th.
It doesn't show on my screen. Oh, now it's showing. It's November 12th, 2020.
And what is in column E?
Inbound.
What is your understanding of inbound?
I think it's coming in, right?
And where is it coming in from?
Maywind.
What is that?
It's a company.
What kind of company?
I don't know.
And what is it in column H?
1 million.
Is that the dollar amount?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the document reflects 2 transfers from Maywind into G Clubs?
Yes.
And was it your understanding that these were pursuant to a loan?
Correct.
Ms. Murray said, "Objection, Your Honor, to the testifying."
The court said, all righty. I don't want you to lead the witness.
What is your understanding of where this money was coming from?
It was from Saraway.
And was the money coming from some particular program from Saraway?
It's a loan agreement.
For a loan agreement through what?
Loan agreement, loan program, I will say it.
Let's look at GXFBA 18, which is also in evidence. Have you seen this document before?
No.
Do you see the first column?
Yes.
Who are the customers listed?
G Club 2.
Let's go to the next column. What's the header on the next column?
Transaction number.
What's the column after that?
Customer ID.
The column after that?
Account ID.
The column after that?
Payment method.
The column after that?
Ms. Murray said, "Your Honor, the government will stipulate to the titles of the columns if it would help."
The court said, okay.
Let's go to column O and row 8, please. What is the base amount there?
$3,035.
What's the base amount at row 10?
$1,999,862.08.
Let's go to column AB. What's the beneficiary name there, row 8 and row 10?
ACA Capital Group.
Is that ACA Capital Group for both rows 8 and 10?
Yes.
Do you recognize these transfers sitting here today, Ms. Lee?
Yeah, I think so.
Did ACA receive these transfers?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "Objection."
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened after the money was transferred into the ACA account?
Ms. Murray said, "Objection."
The court said, if you know if there was a transfer.
Can you please repeat the question?
I think you answered the first part of the question, but I'll ask it again. Do rows 8 and 10 reflect a transfer into ACA Capital?
Yes.
All right. Let's move to GX 60 and 25. This is also in evidence. Let's go to page 7. If you can look at the date. What is the date on this balance sheet?
September 1st, 2020.
Let's go to page 8. You see a transfer there?
Yes.
Could you read the row that starts with September 23rd?
You want me to read the amount?
Yes, please, just the whole row.
120,000 USD and wire at 006037, org Golden Spring.
And now let's go to GXJPM 38. If you could go to row 98, please, column A. Could you read the date?
August 6th, 2020.
And read column G?
Fedwire Credit VA Investors Bank 221272031B/0, Leading Shine New York Limited, 100-657-478 reference, Chase NYC/CTR.
That's fine. Thank you. We can take that down. Ms. Lee, did you open bank accounts for GFashion?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "Asked and answered."
The court said, sustained.
Ms. Shrofa said, I'm just relaying a basic foundation. G Club 1, 2, and 3?
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, sustained.
What did you do after you opened these accounts? What did you do with G Club 1 account?
We didn't do anything.
Did you eventually close it?
Yes.
How about G Club 2?
The same.
How about G Club 3?
The same.
And is there a reason for that? Just yes or no?
No.
You didn't have a reason for why you closed the account?
Ms. Murray said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained. Move on.
Well, because.
The court said, you don't have a question before you.
Did you want to correct your answer from before?
The court said, we are moving on to another topic, Ms. Schroff.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, may we have a sidebar?
The court said, no. Move on.
Where were these accounts opened?
In LA.
And when did you leave LA for good?
I went to Vancouver.
When did you leave LA for good?
2021 May.
And since then have you been back to LA to live?
No.
Have you been back to visit?
No.
Ms. Lee, have you given truthful testimony here today?
Yes.
Do you know Miles Guo?
Yes.
Are you fond of Miles Guo?
No.
Ms. Schrofa said, May I repeat my question, Your Honor?
The court said, no, she's answered. Move on.
Ms. Schrofa said, I don't think she.
The court said, do not make comments.
Ms. Lee, are you testifying here under subpoena?
No.
Have you spoken to Miles Guo since his arrest in 2023?
Yes.
Do you remain supportive of Mr. Guo?
Yes.
And do you believe or credit the charges against Mr. Guo?
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, sustained.
From which country did you come here to testify?
Milan.
And what are your plans after your testimony is complete?
I'm going back to Italy.
Going back where?
Going back to Italy, Milan.
Ms. Schrofa said, Thank you. I have no further questions.
The court said, cross-examination.
Ms. Murray said, thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination. By Ms. Murray.
Ms. Lee, you testified that you started watching Miles Guo's broadcast in 2017, correct?
Correct.
And you said that you voluntarily translated certain Guo media broadcast, correct?
Would you please rephrase that question again?
You voluntarily translated certain of Miles Guo's broadcast that had been posted on Guo media, correct?
Correct.
And Guo in Guo media stands for Miles Guo, correct?
I don't know.
Your testimony is you don't know whether the Guo in Guo media stands for Miles Guo?
I'm not sure.
You donated to the Rule of Law Foundation in 2019, right?
Yes.
You donated $100, is that correct?
Correct.
You knew that Miles Guo said that Rule of Law donations would be used to fund anti-CCP activities, right?
Correct.
And you knew that from his broadcasts, right?
Yes.
And in 2020, you invested in GTV, right?
Correct.
Approximately $19,994?
Yes.
And you made that investment through GTV Canada, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You were living in Canada at the time you made that investment, correct?
Yes.
You made the decision to invest in GTV after watching Miles Guo's broadcasts, right?
Yes.
And Guo talked about GTV during those broadcasts, correct?
Yes.
He said that investment in GTV would result in the investor getting stock in GTV, right?
Yes.
You started working for GFashion in 2020, correct?
Correct.
And Miles Guo offered you that job, didn't he?
No.
Miles Guo suggested the job to you or mentioned the job to you, correct?
He did a referral.
And the G in GFashion stands for Miles Guo, correct? Stands for Guo?
No, G stands for God and goodness.
Your testimony is for GFashion, in particular the G stands for both God and goodness?
Yes, correct.
You stopped working at GFashion LA when that office was shut down in 2021, right?
Yes.
And you were paid a salary for your work at GFashion LA, correct?
Yes.
Approximately $80,000 in 2020, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And approximately $70,000 in 2021, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you testified on direct that you also got paid by the Rule of Law Foundation for about a year, right?
Correct.
You were paid $5,000 per month from July of 2021 through July of 2022 from Rule of Law Foundation, right?
Yes.
And those payments were under a consulting agreement, is that right?
Correct.
Ms. Murray said, Ms. Loftus, if we could please pull up Government Exhibit C0805 for the witness and the parties. And if we could go to page 234. Actually, this is not it. It's only for the witness and the parties, Ms. Loftus. We'll come back to that. Ms. Lee, you know the rule of law's money comes from donors, right?
Yes.
Donors like you, correct?
Correct.
And you know that people believe they're donating so that the rule of law money can be spent to help Chinese dissidents. Right?
Ms. Strofa said, objection to what people believe.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Sorry. Would you please ask the question again?
Sure. Ms. Murray said, if we could have that read back.
The record was read.
Ms. Strofa said, Your Honor, objection, how would she know?
The court said, overruled. Do not make comments, Ms. Schroff. Go ahead.
They're a part of it, I believe. I think.
Miles Guo said in his broadcast that the rule of law companies were charities, correct?
The interpreter said, Counsel, can you repeat that?
Miles Guo said in his broadcasts that the rule of law companies were charities, correct?
I don't remember, but I think it is non-profit organization.
And Miles Guo said in his broadcasts that the donations would be used to further the whistleblower movement activities. Correct?
Yes.
And you were paid approximately $60,000 over that year from the Rule of Law Foundation, correct?
I think so, yes.
Ms. Lee, you own 50% of GFashion on paper, don't you?
No, I don't think so.
Ms. Murray said, Ms. Loftus, can we pull up Government Exhibit 0PB12 which is in evidence, if we can publish it? Ms. Lee, this is a bank document that's in evidence. If we can zoom in, Ms. Loftus, down to the bottom. Do you see the name on the left here, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Whose name is that?
Leanne Lee.
Is that your name?
Yes, that's correct.
And the next line, beneficial ownership, do you see the box that's checked yes?
Correct.
Do you see it says you own 50%?
Correct.
And on the right, do you see the name Tian Hao?
Yes.
Do you see that she is listed as owning 50%?
Yes.
Ms. Lee, you didn't pay anything for your 50% ownership of GFashion, correct?
No.
You testified that in your role at GFashion you opened various bank accounts, right?
Yes.
Including bank accounts in the name of G Club?
Correct.
And G Club, that G stands for Gua, right?
No.
What does that G stand for, Ms. Lee?
The G stand for God.
So GFashion is God and Goodness and G Clubs is the God and Goodness Club. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
The bank accounts that you opened received money from the Himalaya Farms, right?
Sorry.
The GFashion related bank accounts that you opened received money from the Himalaya Farms, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that Maywind is one of the companies associated with the Phoenix Farm?
I don't know.
Are you aware, Ms. Lee, that Medical Supply is one of the companies associated with the Phoenix Farm?
I don't know.
You do know, Ms. Lee, that Mountain of Spices is affiliated with the New York Farm, right?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, Ms. Loftus, let's pull up Government Exhibit BOA 176. Ms. Lee, you know that Long Island David or Brother Chong Dao is the leader of the New York farm, correct?
Can you repeat that question again?
You know that Long Island David or Brother Chong Dao is the leader of the New York farm, correct? Chidong Xia is another one of his names?
Before he was not, now I think so.
He was the leader of the New York farm in 2020, correct?
I think so.
So this is a bank record for Mountain of Spices. Do you see that, top left?
Yes. Page 12.
Ms. Murray said, and if we could go, Ms. Loftus, now to. Looking at the first page, this is for August of 2020, right, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, and we can go to page 12, please, Ms. Loftus. Looking at the top here, Ms. Lee, do you see on August 14th, there's a transaction? Do you see that?
Yes.
And that's a wire out from the Mountain of Spices account to a GFashion account, correct?
Yes.
For $1.1 million, right?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, and now, Ms. Loftus, let's take that down and go to Government Exhibit 0PB3 also in evidence. Ms. Lee, this is an open bank record for a GFashion account, right?
Yes.
For January of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And that North Harper Avenue address, that was the address where you worked for GFashion in LA, correct?
That's the initial address.
And looking at this, Ms. Murray said, if we could go down, Ms. Loftus, to the next page if we could. So focusing in on the top portion of this down, the text. We don't need to get the header. Just Carefree Business Checking Account to the bottom. Ms. Lee, this shows that there was an incoming wire from Medical Supply System International on November 18, 2020, right?
Yes.
That's a wire into your GFashion account, correct?
Correct.
For $2.83 million?
Yes.
We can take that down. Ms. Lee, Miles Guo gave instructions for how you, Tian Hao and Sarah Wei of the Phoenix Farm should work together regarding money transfers, right?
Correct.
And you used some of this money from the Himalaya farms to fund GFashion's business, correct?
I don't remember.
Ms. Lee. Is it your testimony that you didn't use the money in the GFashion account in part to fund GFashion's business?
Maybe I did, but I don't remember.
You sent some of the money in the GFashion accounts to ACA Capital Bank account in Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, if we could just pull up, please, Government Exhibit OPB6 which is in evidence so we can publish it. Ms. Lee, this is one of the G Club account that you opened, correct?
Yes.
G Club 3 at the same address in Los Angeles, correct?
Correct.
And this is a statement from January 31, 2021, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Murray said, if we can focus, Ms. Loftus, through to the bottom of this section. Ms. Lee, looking at the first outgoing wire, that's a wire on January 20, 2021 from this G Club account to ACA Capital Group. Right?
Yes.
And that's in the amount of $1 million?
Yes.
There's a second wire that same day from this account to ACA Capital, correct?
How do you know it's the same account?
We're looking at account statement for the account that you had an open bank, right, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
I asked if it was the same day.
Yes. Okay.
And it's going to ACA Capital, correct?
Correct.
And it's for $3 million, right?
Yes.
And then 2 days later, January 22, 2021, there's an outgoing wire to ACA Capital Group, correct?
Yes.
And this is in the amount of $5,829,885, right?
Correct.
Ms. Lee, you made those outgoing wire transfers to ACA Capital at Miles Guo's direction, right?
No.
Your testimony is that you made the decision to send the money to ACA Capital on your own?
No.
Who directed you to send that money to ACA Capital?
Yvette.
Yvette Wang?
Correct.
What role, if any, did Yvette Wang have at GFashion?
I think based on my memory, I think she was the president of GFashion Media.
Ms. Murray said, "We can take that down, Ms. Loftus." By the way, Ms. Lee, do you know what money laundering is?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury your understanding of what it is?
I'm sorry. I don't know how to describe it.
That's okay. I'll move on. GFashion lost money in its first year in business, right?
Yes.
Between July of 2020 and May of 2021, GFashion had lost about $23 million, correct?
I don't think so.
Do you recall Miles Guo having broadcast that GFashion had lost about $23 million during that time period?
I don't know.
And people complained about the quality of the merchandise that GFashion sold, right?
Yes.
Miles Guo himself described some of the products of poor quality on a broadcast, right?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "Ms. Loftus, if we could pull up Government Exhibit Z9 at page 93. Ms. Lee, looking at the top left here, what is the date of this entry on this chart which is in evidence?" Ms. Murray said, "Sorry, just give us a moment, please."
Can you highlight it for me?
Ms. Murray said, "Ms. Loftus."
May 20th, 2021.
And on what website was this posted according to the second column?
G News.
And, Ms. Lee, the G in G News stands for Miles Guo, right?
No.
What does it stand for?
It stands for God and Goodness.
Looking at this, Ms. Lee, the photo that is shown in the screen capture there, Ms. Lee, that's Mr. Guo, right?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "If we could zoom out a little please, Ms. Loftus. And if we could focus on the bottom paragraph leading into the next page 94, down to the next paragraph as well." Ms. Lee, this is a transcript and translation of Miles Guo's broadcast. It says here that GFashion has lost at least 23 to 25 million US dollars. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then looking at the next paragraph down there. Do you see where Miles Guo said some of the products are poor quality?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "And if we could zoom out of that, Ms. Loftus, and zoom in on the next paragraph, please." Ms. Lee, some of the GFashion items were made in China, right?
Yes.
So GFashion paid companies in China to make certain products that it sold to anti-CCP freedom fighters. Is that right?
No, we did not pay the Chinese company directly. I think, based on my memory, it was LA American company. But they outsourced the work to China.
But you were aware that GFashion's products had been made in China, right?
Only hat, socks, and underwears, and we do not sell those. We give it away as a gift.
And those items were not free for GFashion to acquire, correct?
Yes.
And this is again from that same broadcast from Miles Guo. Do you see where he said, "Structural parts of this hat are made in China and there is no alternative"? Do you see that second line into the third?
Yes.
Do you see where he says, "We're only told about this after we had brought it"? Do you see that?
Yes.
So GFashion did buy the items, paid for the items that had been made in China, right?
Not directly to the Chinese company.
My question was whether GFashion paid for the merchandise that it ended up receiving that had been made in China?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "We can take that down, Ms. Loftus." You testified on direct that Miles Guo sent you to the UK to meet with William J.E. at the Himalaya Exchange. Right?
Yes.
That was in 2022, correct?
Around that time.
And it was Miles Guo who directed you to review the finances of the Himalaya Exchange, right?
Correct.
And you testified that William J.E. sent you away the first day, right?
Correct.
Ms. Lee, you're aware that the Himalaya Exchange has since moved its operations to Abu Dhabi, aren't you?
Can you repeat that question again?
You're aware that the Himalaya Exchange has since moved its operation to Abu Dhabi, aren't you?
Part of the operation.
Is that a yes, ma'am?
Ms. Shrofa said, "Objection. The witness is answered the question."
The court said, "Sustained. Go ahead."
And you said that you went back a second day to the Himalaya Exchange during that trip to the UK, correct?
Yes.
Do you know who Jesse Brown is?
No.
You weren't aware that Jesse Brown was the CEO of the Himalaya Exchange for a period?
Ms. Shrofa said, "Objection. Asked and answered." She said she doesn't know who Jesse Brown is.
The court said, "Sustained. Go ahead."
Ms. Lee, were you aware that an individual named Jesse Brown was the CEO of the Himalaya Exchange?
Ms. Shrofa said, "Objection."
The court said, "She's already said she doesn't know who Jesse Brown is."
Ms. Murray said, "I asked whether an individual with that name was the CEO of the Himalaya Exchange, Your Honor."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Same objection."
The court said, "Sustained."
Ms. Lee, the U.S. government seized nearly $10 million from a GFashion bank account at U.S. Bank in October of 2022. Correct?
Correct.
That was one of the accounts you were a signer on, right?
Yes.
You testified yesterday that you had never seen Miles Guo before yesterday, is that right?
Yes.
And you testified today that you've never been to the Mawa residence, is that right?
Yes.
You're asked a number of questions on direct about PowerPoints that you prepare for different properties. Do you remember those?
Can you rephrase that question again?
You were asked a number of questions on direct examination about decks that you prepared with information about different real estate properties. Do you remember those?
Yes.
And the decks that related to properties in California and Texas and Hawaii, those were from June of 2022. Right?
I don't remember.
Ms. Lee, you testified at one point that the Mawa property was purchased in 2020. Do you remember saying that?
I don't remember.
I think later you testified that it was purchased at the end of 2021. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
The Mawa residence was a large mansion, correct?
Depends which property you're going to compare to.
Is it your testimony that a 50,000 square foot property is not large?
I have seen bigger ones.
Ms. Lee, Miles Guo broadcast from the Mawa residence, correct?
I think so, yes.
And he broadcast from his apartment at the Sherry Netherland in Manhattan, right?
Yes.
And he broadcast from his home in Greenwich, Connecticut, right?
Yes.
You have an account on Getter, correct?
Correct.
And the G in Getter, that stands for Miles Guo, right?
No.
Does that one also stand for God and goodness? Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Your account on Getter is under the GFashion name, right?
Yes.
And your handle is at Cornfield Sis, is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Murray said, "If we could show the witness and the parties and the court what's marked for identification as Government Exhibit CO801. Ms. Lee, are you able to see what's up on your screen?"
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "Ms. Loftus, if we could scroll through the next few pages, please." Are these screenshots taken from your Getter account, Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, "Your Honor, the government offers CO801.
The court said, "No objection."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Have you played the whole one? Is it complete?"
Ms. Murray said, "Yes."
Ms. Shrofa said, "No objection."
The court said, "It is admitted."
Government's Exhibit CO801 received in evidence. By Ms. Murray.
If we can go to the first page again, please, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Lee. Who is shown in the photo associated with your Getter profile there? Ms. Murray said, "If we could publish, Ms. Loftus, please." Thank you. Everyone can see it now. Can you please tell us who is shown in that horizontal photo associated with your Getter account?
Ms. Schrofa said, I don't think she's going to understand horizontal.
The court said you can answer.
Ms. Murray said, if we can zoom in on that image that's referring to the photograph, not the emoji. Who is that?
Can you please ask the question again because I thought you were talking to the jury?
Sure. Ms. Lee, who is in this photograph?
Mr. Miles.
We can zoom out of that. And looking here, Ms. Lee, GFashion.com. That website is listed as part of your Getter profile, correct?
Yes, so the people can redirect to GFashion.com.
Let's go to next page please, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Lee, this is a screenshot of a post from June 22, 2023 on your account. Right?
Yes.
And we can see there before the date that's your handle, correct, Cornfield Sis?
Yes.
If we could zoom in on the 4 photos, please, Ms. Loftus. Who's in these photos, Ms. Lee?
Mr. Miles.
What is he doing in these photos?
He's checking the fabrics.
We can zoom out for a moment. The post has a number of hearts on top of it, is that right?
Correct.
Let go to the next page, please. This is a post from your Getter account from May 11, 2023, right?
Yes.
And that's a still from the filming of the Hero music video, correct?
Yes.
And there is an emoji of a face with heart eyes and then hearts on this post, right?
Yes.
And you testified on direct, I believe, that the substance of that music video and that song related to fighting the CCP. Correct?
Ms. Schrofa said, objection, misstates the testimony.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Ms. Lee, you testified that Hero is a song in substance about fighting against the CCP, correct?
Ms. Schrofa said, objection, misstates the testimony of the witness.
The court said, overruled. She stated that the video had to do with the CCP oppression of Mongolian culture.
Ms. Schrofa said, that's correct, Your Honor.
The court said, go ahead.
Ms. Murray said, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lee, is it fair to say that you would characterize the song Hero as being anti-CCP?
Yes, it's honor the people that stood up to the CCP, for the Mongolian people, for the bravery.
Ms. Lee, do you know whether the people who stood up to the CCP for the Mongolian people used lightsabers?
I don't know.
And you were involved with the filming of this music video, correct?
I coordinate it.
And it cost approximately $1 million to make, isn't that right?
No, I don't think so.
What is your testimony about how much that music video cost?
I don't remember.
Ms. Murray said, let's go to next page please, Ms. Loftus.
The interpreter said, I want to make sure, did you say lightsavers or lightsabers?
Ms. Murray said, lightsabers. Ms. Lee, this is a post on your account from May 9th of 2023, right?
Yes.
And who is in the photo for this post?
Mr. Miles.
Can you read what you wrote in English in the caption?
Happy birthday and miss you very much. You are the hero of our time. Waiting for you to come home.
Ms. Murray said, we can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Thank you. Ms. Lee, you testified that some of the real estate searching that you did related to the NFSC, correct?
Yes.
You also testified that you and Camel of GFashion did work relating to the NFSC, right?
Can you repeat that question again or rephrase that?
Sure. You also testified that you and Camel among others were in a chat group that discussed things relating to the NFSC. Right?
Camel is not in that group. That group is myself, Jason, Brian, and Gandalf. Camel is not in that group.
During the period that you have been paid by GFashion, you've also done work relating to the NFSC. Correct?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, Ms. Loftus, if we could pull up Government Exhibit Z9 at page 15. Ms. Lee, this is a date. Can you read the date that's on this chart?
June 28, 2020.
And on what website was this posted?
G News.
Do you see where it says, me, Miles Gua, will never ask for a cent from you for G-Series?
Yes.
And, Ms. Lee, is it your testimony that the G in G-Series stands for God and goodness?
Yes.
The text here in this transcript says, the NFSC. Please remember in the future that it is a quasi-political entity. The G-Series GTV, GFashion, G-Club, G-Coin and G-Dollar have no substantial connection with the NFSC. Do you see that?
Yes.
When you were doing research relating to a physical location for the NFSC, you were being paid by GFashion, right?
Correct.
Ms. Murray said, we can take that down. Ms. Loftus, if we can put up just for the witness government exhibit CO802. Ms. Lee, do you recognize what is depicted here?
Yes.
What is it?
It's new federal state of China's national flag.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, the government offers government exhibit C0802.
Ms. Schrofa said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit CO802 received in evidence.
Ms. Murray said, we don't need to publish that, Ms. Loftus. Thank you. By the way, Ms. Lee, when you sent money from one of the GFashion accounts that you controlled to the company called Medical Supply, you weren't buying medical supplies, were you?
Can you tell me which year?
We can pull it up again. Ms. Loftus, if we could please pull up Government Exhibit 0PB3. The document we looked at from November of 2020. This is November of 2020, Ms. Lee, and let me just clarify. It was incoming from medical supplies.
Exactly. It's not outsourcing. Exactly. Correct.
Was medical supplies supplying medical supplies to GFashion?
No, it was a loan agreement with them.
And that was with one of the farms, correct? The Himalaya farms?
I don't know.
You didn't draft that loan agreement, did you, Ms. Lee?
No.
Ms. Murray said, you can take that down, Ms. Loftus. May I have a moment, Your Honor?
The court said yes.
Ms. Murray said, nothing further. Thank you.
The court said redirect.
Redirect examination. By Ms. Schrofa.
Ms. Lee, you were asked questions about the money GFashion lost, correct?
Yes.
In what year was it that GFashion lost money, do you know?
2020.
Did GFashion do better in 2021?
Roughly or about the same because you're founding a company. You're setting up. So the first few years is all about investment.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, objection. Move to strike as non-responsive.
The court said, I will strike everything after. I'm going to strike the whole thing.
Did GFashion do better financially in 2022?
I was not involved.
How about in 2023?
Yes.
And how about now in 2024?
Better.
Is GFashion still up and running?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor, relevance.
The court said, sustained.
Ms. Schrofa said, Your Honor, she opened the door on cross.
The court said you can step up.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
The court said, you're saying that she opened the door to current operations?
Ms. Schrofa said, we're entitled to show that GFashion grew, that it was not a defunct company. And the government has an ongoing RICO charge. Part of the RICO enterprise is to say they're sham companies. And we're entitled to show there was a trajectory of growth. This was not a sham company. If it was a crappy product at one point in time, the crappiness was eliminated, which I intend to go into next.
The court said, what they're trying to show is that your client is a fraudster during a certain period of time that does not include today.
Ms. Schrofa said, okay. I will stop as to where. Where is it that the government claims the RICO stops? What is the date?
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, we charged a date range in the indictment that's through in or about. And that's in or about the defendant's arrest, March 15, 2023. But I also note that we renew our objection for our request for the continuing operations limiting instruction. I believe yesterday the court said it wasn't necessary. To the extent that Ms. Schroff intends to go into this line of questioning, including the argument that the revenue of these fraud entity was somehow relevant to this defendant, we would ask for a limiting instruction.
The court said, "What's the date of the request?"
Mr. Horton said, "We submitted it as part of our July 7th letter requesting a few supplemental instructions in the jury charge. An instruction that the continued operations of any of the entities is irrelevant. And Your Honor explained in the court's ruling yesterday morning that you didn't think it was necessary on the record at the time. We submit this is a second shot at this line of argument, that it's relevant, and the jury's now heard about it. Continuing operations of the Himalaya Exchange and continued operations of GFashion. The courts recognize that every sidebar we've had on this issue it's not been relevant. It's not appropriate. So we just renew our request for that instruction."
Ms. Schroff said, "The government is the one who brought up the Himalaya Exchange, not us. They asked if the Himalaya Exchange had moved to Abu Dhabi. That was not us. We never brought out where Himalaya Exchange moved to. All of our questioning about Himalaya Exchange was limited to the time period of 2021 and 2022. The government also brought out the fact that this company was shoddy, their work product was bad. Their work product was refunded, and it was more than that. They tried to imply that this company got the product from China and sold it as non-Chinese product. So we're entitled to go into all of that. All of it is completely relevant only because the government crossed on it. If the government hadn't crossed on the fact that Himalaya Exchange had moved to Abu Dhabi, why would I care where Himalaya Exchange has moved to?"
Ms. Murray said, 1 point. Mr. Horton was referring to the Himalaya Exchange evidence that came in previously with one of the defense witnesses who testified about the video that he had made about accessing the account, not about the comments that were made today. With respect to Ms. Schroff's claim that the government has opened the door. On direct, Mr. Schroff asked a series of questions about recent visits that Ms. Lee made to different warehouses that were located in Italy and asked where she's going after her testimony. And she testified she's going back to Milan, Italy to continue working at GFashion. The government did not open the door on cross-examination. The scope and extent Ms. Schroff is suggesting to introduce about GFashion operations is entirely irrelevant and inappropriate and prejudicial. And with respect to things like products being made in China, Mr. Gua himself said that in evidence that has been admitted.
Ms. Schroff said, "That's not what Mr. Gua said. What Mr. Gua said was, he had contracted with a company that subcontracted and brought the products in China and they didn't know. And that's in the text, and that is something I'm clearly entitled to clean up. Her visits to the factory were in 2021 and 2022, while the defendant covers that time period. Her visits to those factories are before May 15th of 2023 when he gets arrested. Her visits to those factories show an ongoing enterprise which is legitimate, which is GFashion. That is why those questions were asked. Not because we are trying to show anything post 2023 or 2024. That was the relevance of that. I'm going to let Mr. Skirek."
Mr. Skirek said, briefly, Your Honor, if I might add. With respect to the exchange part of what the government is arguing here, we did go out of our way to make sure when Mr. Dai testified about the exchange and the videos that were being watched that we pointed out that it was the same as in 2022. We clearly tied it back to that period of time specifically for the reason that the government stated.
Mr. Horton said, "For the completeness of the record. That happened after Your Honor had a sidebar asking me why I hadn't objected to the relevance of the contemporary use of the app. After an extensive record was made, I was trying to hold back, including because I'm trying to get this trial done. I held back. There was an extensive record made about how the witness had made that recording the night before he testified. I think the record on that speaks for itself."
Mr. Skirek said, "The point is, we did tie it back to 2022, so there's not prejudice."
Ms. Schroff said, "And more importantly, you didn't object. That's on you."
Mr. Skirek said, "I think the court has."
The court said, "Ms. Schroff, please do not address the other attorneys. Just address me."
Ms. Schroff said, They had an opportunity to object. They didn't object. The evidence didn't come over their objection. It came in on their consent. Nothing we have done here has been other than in response to the questions they put to this witness. They're trying to argue that GFashion lost $23 million. I'm entitled to answer that.
The court said, let's go to that first. That GFashion lost that money during the charged period is relevant. What happened afterwards, whether it lost even more or whether it was wildly successful, is not relevant.
Ms. Schrofa said, whether it lost value, successful, or lost more money up until May 15th of 2023, it's relevant, right? Because that's the charge conspiracy.
The court said, the charged period.
Ms. Schrofa said, right. I'm happy to stop at the charge period. What I'm trying to show is about the hats and the companies, all of which the government brought out. I'm entitled to go back and clean that up to show that the way they read those documents is completely wrong. That during that time period GFashion had problems, they addressed those problems and they moved forward. How's that not relevant?
The court said, what exactly were you getting at?
Ms. Murray said, on the objection, Your Honor.
The court said, no, I'm confused as to.
Ms. Murray said, I think what Ms. Schroff is referring to is when I pulled up a document in evidence and I read as written the statement that Miles Guam made about certain products that were made in China. And I confirm with the witness that GFashion had paid for those products.
The court said, right. So that's perfectly appropriate to bring that out. And I just don't know what more you want to do with that.
Ms. Schrofa said, what she read wasn't in fact what it said. And then the witness tried to explain it, and the witness explained that the contract between GFashion was not with the Chinese product giver. They had contract with an American company. The American company, unbeknownst to GFashion, subcontracted with Chinese vendor, and the product came from China.
The court said, so both Miles Guo and his quote as well as the witness have already said that, so there's no more on that. No more, Ms. Schroff. So what is open at this point?
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor. I think we would just note that we would renew our request for a jury charge on continuing operations. Other than that, we believe the court has ruled on everything. We believe a lot of testimony has been covered and we're ready to move on.
The court said, are you asking for an instruction at this time?
Ms. Murray said, I misspoke. That limiting instruction. I think given the fact that these two different schemes are now in front of the jury with most recent post-indictment, post-arrest operation, we would renew that request.
The court said, I'm going to think about that.
Continued on next page. In open court.
The court said, sustained. Go ahead.
By Ms. Schrofa.
Ms. Lee, you were asked questions by the government about the poor quality of products by GFashion, correct?
Correct.
When you received complaints about products for GFashion, did you endeavor to fix those problems?
Yes.
Could I show the witness GXZ 993? Do you recall being asked questions about this document?
Yes.
And after you heard about the complaints for certain products, did you stop hiring or doing business with those vendors?
Yes.
We can take that down. You were shown GC 0801, correct? If I could just have that pulled up. While it's being pulled up, this is your getter handle, is that correct?
Yes.
If I could scroll down, please. You were asked questions about these posts that you made. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Could you scroll down a little bit more? And do you see those emojis?
Yes.
And do you see the emoji on the next picture?
Yes.
Are you a frequent emoji user?
Absolutely.
You were asked questions about lightsabers, correct?
Correct.
In the videos, correct?
Yes.
Was the video supposed to be an artistic display of something?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, objection.
The court said, sustained. Don't lead.
What was the video supposed to do you know? Can you explain it? It's okay. I'll move on. Don't worry about it. Could I show her Z9, please? You were shown page 15 of this document, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Lee, had you seen this document before today?
No.
And you were directed to language by the prosecutor where it says quasi-political, correct?
Yes.
Could I show her the language, please? Do you know what quasi-political means?
No.
Do you know what it means when it says no substantial connections?
No.
We can take that down. You were shown C0802, correct? And let's show it to the jury as well. What is that?
New Federal State of China flag.
What's in the center?
It's a 7-point star.
Why 7 points?
So let me explain this. Okay. So in 7 and 3, these two numbers are very mysterious in Taoism. So 7, that means that you're connecting Ken with the universe. It's almost like channels. And then we call it belief stars.
Ms. Schrofa said, I have nothing further.
The court said recross.
Recross examination. By Ms. Murray.
Ms. Lee, Miles Gua is also known as Brother 7 or 7th brother, correct?
Correct.
And you want to help Miles Gua, right?
Yes, because.
Just the question.
Sorry.
You want to help Miles Gua, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, nothing further.
Redirect examination. By Ms. Schrofa.
If he were brother 27, would there be 27 stars on the NFSC flag?
No stars.
Ms. Murray said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said all righty. We heard enough about the.
Ms. Lee, you were asked by the government if you want to help Miles Gua, correct?
Yes.
Would you lie for Mr. Gua under oath?
No.
Ms. Schrofa said, thank you, I'm done.
Ms. Murray said, nothing further.
The court said thank you. You may step out of the courtroom.
Witness excused.